rely on marketing more than ever to connect with audiences. One podcast aims to make sense of it all. This is Movies and Marketing.
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Go ahead. Make my day.
How about you, you crazy Dutch bastard?
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Take a look around. You're at the threshold of hell.
We might as well have a good time.
I am an FBI agent.
Hey, I'm Shad.
And I'm Patrick.
And this is the Movies and Marketing Podcast, where we talk about, you guessed it, movies and marketing. So let's jump right into it. What are we talking about today, Patrick?
We're talking about the movies Aquaman and Bumblebee, which both came out at the same time, and both are aimed at a similar audience. Would you agree?
I'd agree with both those things.
Yeah.
So the question we're asking today, what we're trying to figure out is, which movie's marketing campaign was better or more successful? So we're throwing these two movie marketing campaigns in the ring against each other. Aquaman versus Bumblebee. Should be a good one.
It should be. They're both, very superhero-esque.
Very special effectsy.
Yeah, that's a technical term.
That's what they say in the industry, I think.
Yeah.
So before we get down and dirty with the showdown, let's look at some box office numbers. We have some figures here. Which movie has made more money? Who's more successful so far? So here's what we got on Aquaman. Aquaman, reported budget $160 million. A lot of money. But doing pretty well. As of January 15th, Aquaman has made over $290 million domestic and over $1 billion worldwide. So big money, huge success. How about Bumblebee, Patrick? How's Bumblebee doing?
Bumblebee has made $110 million domestic and $367 million worldwide. It's a lot of dough. Not quite as much as Aquaman, but it's a lot.
Yeah, still doing all right, and that's on a budget of $135 million, so a little less than Aquaman. In terms of critical response, looking at the Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic numbers, Aquaman, 64% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a 55 Metacritic score, whereas Bumblebee, 92% fresh, pretty good, and a 66 Metacritic score. So Bumblebee clearly winning with critics.
Yeah, I think everybody's said the story's pretty good on Bumblebee. And I didn't see the movie. Did you see the movie?
No, I haven't seen either of these movies yet, so I know very little about them in terms of how they exist as actual movies.
Yeah, I saw Aquaman, but I didn't see Bumblebee. And I will say it was entertaining, but it could easily be a rental. Don't get me wrong, sometimes cinematic movies need to be seen in the theater, and some would argue the Aquaman, Bumblebee, they're big cinematic movies, but there's so many of them now that, sometimes it's just special effects overkill, and you can't go see every special effects movie because it's pretty much existed in every movie since 2000.
Yeah, I would say you could argue both of these movies are good theater movies. They probably benefit from being seen in the theater.
Yeah.
That being said, and maybe it says something about the marketing, neither one of these particularly compelled me to rush to the theater. It didn't strike my interest in a way where I'm like, I gotta see it in the theater.
You didn't want to see Arthur Curry go home to Atlantis and become king of the sea?
I don't know who Arthur Curry is, but I'm assuming he's Aquaman.
See, man.
Just like Aquaman? Yeah.
But I will say, Aquaman, pretty cool character.
Kind of. I also remember when the idea of an Aquaman movie was a joke on the show Entourage, like 10 years ago.
Yes, I do remember that. I did like that show, and I do remember how that was the butt of a joke.
So who doesn't love Aquaman when he was played by Vincent Chase in a fake show?
Yeah, would have been a funny movie had that guy played Aquaman.
I think it was directed by James Cameron in that version, so probably would have been pretty good.
Yeah, maybe. When they make him a big blue guy with a tail, but it's not Aquaman. Like, this isn't anything like Aquaman.
Yeah, no, it's totally different. Anyway, let's get down and dirty now with our showdown. I think I said down and dirty twice now. I got to get over down and dirty. Let's get away from that.
I mean, we'll have to jump into the water to get clean again.
And who wants to, get into all that aqua? Anyway, we got 3 categories in our showdown. Patrick, what's the first one?
So the first category is posters. Movie posters are a big draw for most movies. It's something that very quickly gets you on board to what this movie is about, who's in it, just an overall sense and feeling and the tone of a movie. So we often talk about movie posters for that very reason. It's a good snapshot. If you're looking at it from a business marketing perspective, this would be their literature, their marketing literature, right?
Yeah. Posters are a really cool thing too, because it's that combination of, art and commerce, On one side, it's something you may want to hang on your wall 20 years after the movie's out. On the other side, it's something that at the time of the movie's release sits in theaters and is meant to grab your attention and make you want to see the movie.
Yeah, as creative professionals, it holds a special place in my heart for that reason, right? It is art.
And there's some truly amazing movie poster art out there. Let's see if either one of these are that. So Aquaman versus Bumblebee, the movie poster. Where do you stand on this? What's your pick? Which one is better?
I really have to go with the Aquaman poster. I think the Aquaman poster has depth. It's just a clear winner here, The one thing I will say that they both suffer from some of the same cliche marketing. The formulas are so ingrained in the movie world, much like the business world, and it's hard for studios to break that norm. So I get it. The Bumblebee poster, there's so much going on there. There's the images of the people, the characters in the movie. There's a cliff with Bumblebee and the girl standing next to the car. There's the bridge in the background. There's a jet fighter that's flying through the sky. I'm not sure what that's all about because I haven't seen the movie. There's just so much happening there. But Aquaman, though, it did something a little different. It's got the character in the center. It's got this triangular visual where, he's the central figure, but he's on this coral reef below him. And all these sea creatures, whether they're dolphins or sharks or whales or whatever, manta rays, sea turtles. I see a bunch of things in there. Anyway, he then is at the foreground, and obviously he's the central character of this movie. A lot of weight is riding on his shoulders, the weight of the sea.
And he's just a dude underwater.
Yeah.
No gear, nothing, just underwater.
He's not scuba diving.
Nope. He's living there or something, hanging out in his leather pants underwater.
Yeah. So what did you think?
I went the same way. I also thought Aquaman was the better one. It's the more eye-grabbing of them. It's the one that pulls your eyes in and just makes you want to explore it. I wanted there to be a little bit more Easter egg things to find in the background, like interesting, weird things that maybe shouldn't be there. And there's that a little bit, but not totally. I wanted a little more of that, but in general, it does. It catches your eye and makes you look. I love the position of Aquaman on the poster, his crouch, his long hair flowing in the water, his staff that he's holding. It's a good, striking image. Could be a little more interesting, but it's definitely the more eye-grabbing of the 2 posters. The Bumblebee one is just not that great. It uses kind of that, as you talked about, that trope of where they have the series of faces, kind of in the sky. It's been done on a million posters. I guess the different thing here is one of those faces is a Transformer face. But I think what we learned from this poster is you don't want a Transformer face in a close-up. It just looks weird. I think Bumblebee's face just looks weird. I don't want to see it in a close-up. I don't know. Doesn't hold up to scrutiny. So the whole thing just doesn't totally work for me. The Aquaman's definitely the better poster here. I will say they both have pretty bad taglines on the poster. The Aquaman one is "Home is calling," and the Bumblebee one is "Every hero has a beginning."
Yeah, I don't feel like that's a very strong, compelling argument. I should go see that movie.
Whoa, home is calling? Oh my God. How's he gonna answer?
Yeah. I will say this, you said staff. It's a trident, man. It's a trident.
Is it a trident?
Yeah.
I would think of a trident having 3. This thing has 5 points.
Yeah, I don't know the real mechanics of what makes a trident a trident.
I was going to call it a pitchfork, and I backed off of that because I was like, that's not the proper name.
We'll get internet scrutiny if you misname his staff.
whatever that thing is.
His pole.
Call it his pole. That's much better.
That's his underwater cell tower.
There you go. That's how, when home calls,
yeah,
you can get the call.
Home is calling. I need cell coverage underneath the ocean. on the ocean floor.
Oh, it's in my trident. All right, so let's move on to our next category, Aquaman, clearly taking the posters.
So trailers is number 2 in our categories. And we have 2 trailers. And we have both these trailers up on the speakinghuman.com website listed with this podcast. So if you want to check those out, you can check them out there or wherever fine trailers are found. But what did you think about the trailers, Shad? Which one did you think was more effective?
This was a tough one. This one was close for me. We all know how important trailers are to, get you to want to see a movie. It's one of your best marketing tools. And this one was close in terms of, I kind of went back and forth on which one I liked better. Had to watch them a few times, give them a little bit of scrutiny. But in the end, I think I'm going Bumblebee here. I'll tell you why. I think the Bumblebee trailer just did a little bit of a better job creating an emotional connection with the main character and establishing the bones of the story. I got from the trailer pretty quickly that this is about a girl becoming friends with a transformer. And I got, somewhat invested in that. And that's kind of the first half of the trailer. They kind of established that. And I liked that part of it better than the second half where it shows them going on an adventure together. But I thought it just nailed that down a little better than the Aquaman trailer, which just seemed more intent on showing me a little bit more chaotic, but eye-popping visuals. They were just kind of like, whoa, look at all these cool things we could show you. Less interested in establishing a story to get me involved in. That's where I landed. I went with Bumblebee. What about you?
I'm going to respond with a no on this one and reject your notion of Bumblebee winning.
What?
I will say, I think they're both strong trailers, actually, but they both have their flaws, as with most trailers. But the Aquaman trailer, here's what made that a winner for me, is that it relies on Jason Momoa's charisma. This movie is riding on his shoulders. I think people really liked his character in the Justice League movie. And I think that this trailer, even though it's showing a lot of action, it's reliant more on him and showcasing him. And I don't think that the emotional connection is that strong in the Bumblebee trailer. I know you mentioned that. I hope that it's not because of my preconceived problems with this movie. I feel like we've seen all this before, and quite literally in some cases.
Yeah. And I will say the second half of this trailer gets bogged down in that Transformer loud battle scenes that Michael Bay crushed us with in those past few Transformer movies. There's a lot of that in the second half of this trailer that I didn't like as much. And I will say, in response to Jason Momoa and Aquaman, he is good. And I like the parts of the trailer. I like when they do that guitar riff and show him. Mm-hmm. I just didn't feel like a story got established here. I liked when they showed him going underwater. And I liked, him and them showing his excitement. They had a little bit of adventure and humor, but I left it going, wait, who are the bad guys? Is he against the underwater people? Is he against these robots? Is he against the humans? I thought it could have been cut together in a clearer way.
I will agree with you. The trailer does that, and it does that for very good reason. Being the only one of those movies that I saw, that's how the movie is, actually. I think there's a lot of movies that are really good because villains and bad guys aren't black and white. People don't start off as bad guys. That's kind of what you see a little bit in this movie, and it comes through in the trailer for that reason, which is great that you picked up on that.
So we're split there, moving into our third and final category of the showdown. What's that one, Patrick?
So the third and final category is the website and social for these movies. We've got the Aquaman website game and the Bumblebee 360 experience, both linked from the Speaking Human website. And I thought the Bumblebee website was better. I thought that it created a space for us to explore, which was more than the Aquaman website provided. It was more immersive. And the biggest win for me, they both had games. The game on the Bumblebee website worked, but I could not get the controls for the Aquaman game to work. And all it was the up and down arrow on the keyboard, but my Aquaman would not move. So I just kept dying. It's just unacceptable.
Yeah, and we honed in on these things because these were actually the most kind of interesting or unique things both these movies were doing in the online space within their websites or social media components. Mostly standard stuff, other than it's interesting they both have these video games and throwback video games at that on their websites, and that's the most unique thing they're doing in that space. But I'm also with Bumblebee here. I thought the 360 garage idea, which is interesting, wasn't really developed. There wasn't a lot of things you could actually explore or see in the garage. The game was the best of that. You know, it was mimicking the 1980s video game, something that's fitting given the movie's set in the 1980s. And I liked that game a lot. I liked how they put it together. You know, you were Bumblebee, you could transform in the game, you could do a double hop. Very, simple collecting coins, avoiding things game, which was the same as Aquaman. You were just avoiding things that you didn't want to hit you and grabbing things you did want to power up.
Yeah.
But the Bumblebee one was just a little more fun. The Aquaman one, even though my controls actually worked, something I'd try once and then I would never really go back to. The Bumblebee one was probably something I might show to someone else or do a few times because I just thought it was a more fun way to spend a few minutes.
Yeah. And I will say this, it's funny because once upon a time, a lot of these games like these were in Adobe Flash.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that we're in a place right now where the games are actually starting to come back to that level, that they had these fairly complex games that aren't using Flash, right?
Yeah. So that's our 3 categories. So we come to our ultimate winners, which, as you can probably see from what you've heard so far, well, not see, as you could probably hear from what you've heard so far, we have a split. I think we're going in different directions on this, Patrick. For me, it was Bumblebee. Bumblebee came out on top here.
I mean, if we're tallying everything just so far, I have to say Aquaman won the day. I mean, it's a clear winner in the box office, so there's also that going for it. And that also is sometimes an indicator for me whether or not something was a winner or a loser in the movie marketing. But yeah.
I think it's a component.
Yeah, it's a component of that. You could see, was the marketing successful? I mean, sometimes the marketing has nothing to do with how successful a movie is. That is definitely the case sometimes, right?
Yeah, I think here, both these movies in terms of marketing campaigns are pretty close. They're actually pretty closely aligned with what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Yeah.
There's really not that much, variation. We may be picking one or another, but there wasn't any blowouts in any of these showdowns as far as I saw it anyway.
Yeah. I think them both being so closely aligned, Aquaman does have the benefit of maybe not as much saturation in that type of storyline, whereas Bumblebee still runs the risk of, like you said before, all the Transformer movies before it, it has guilt by association type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty well marketed. It's got the best reviews of any Transformers movie, but they peaked 5 years ago, and it was diminishing box office after that. Mm-hmm. So I think everybody's just kind of a little sick of that franchise, and, it was nothing new or interesting. It kind of became a joke for just the noise of it. So I think it was a tough sell for this movie, even though generally anyone who's seen it and, the critical response for a Transformers movie is really good. It was just, maybe if it was released in the summer away from Aquaman, it would have done better. I don't know. But there's something to that. I think that fatigue kind of hurt it a little bit.
Yeah, and I will go back to the validity of having Jason Momoa and his charisma, something that the DC universe so desperately needs, and audiences really liked that humor and fun he brought to the Justice League movie. And I think that's what people are really going to see, and that's what the marketing relied on, was his character, focusing on him. Because he's got that personality, like The Rock, big guy personality that I think really wins the hearts of the audiences. And, he's got muscles, so female audiences, love that part of it.
Yeah. We always need another Schwarzenegger type to rise to that level. You'd like to see a star who kind of does that unique action thing, can throw off the one-liners while also, pulling off those big action scenes like that. We can always use a star like that. They're in short supply these days.
Yeah. So overall, we're split, right?
It seems like we definitely split on this. Like I said, closer than you would expect. But yeah, I think we go in different directions. I'm Team Bumblebee. You seem to be Team Aquaman. This is all just based on marketing and perceptions right now. Once I see the movies, I'll be like, they're both awful. Or they're both great. Let's look at the positive side.
Yeah. But movies and marketing, and that's the podcast is all about that, that's actually pretty good, if you're just giving us your unbiased critique of just the marketing alone.
That's what we're here for, right?
Yes.
Well, that's it for this episode of Movies and Marketing. So until next time, let's fade to black.
I'll be back.
He's not coming back.